This is a very heavy issue. This is an issue where especially men don't even want to discuss. They bury it deep inside of themselves, and it can be the reason behind a lot of anger, a lot of aggression, a lot of hostility, lack of trust, addiction, anxiety, infidelity, and things of this nature. And hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Soulful Intuitive. Today's topic's called SA, which is physical abuse of the bad kind. The reason why we're using the letters is because the YouTube doesn't allow us to use the whole term. We don't want to go on to their blacklist. But before we start, please like and subscribe. Thank you. The reason why I chose a heavy topic today is because it is a topic that comes up quite a lot, and it is a reality for a lot of us out there. Recently, I was at a gathering, and a total stranger started telling me about their experience from the age of 8 till 13. And I wasn't expecting it to come, but at this point in my life, I'm very used to people trusting me with their deep secrets. And this person went on to tell me that they haven't told anyone except for one person, and this person is around 40. And of course, we spent the rest of the night talking about it. There was tears involved, and there was a lot of sadness. There was a lot of guilt, and in situations like this, all you can do is to listen. And I just carried that burden, that heavy weight on my heart for the next couple of days. And as honored as I was that I was chosen in order to help someone or to just be the shoulder to cry on, I was also not equipped with enough knowledge and expertise in order to help this person. So the next time I was talking to my therapist, I just asked her as why this person hasn't sought help. And she told me that this is a very heavy issue. This is an issue where especially men don't even want to discuss. They bury it deep inside of themselves, and it can be the reason behind a lot of anger, a lot of aggression, a lot of hostility, lack of trust, addiction, anxiety, infidelity, and things of this nature. And she wisely told me that women, in a lot of cases, at least tell a few people because they share these things a bit more than men do, because men, our society has trained them into not being very expressive, especially of topics that are very vulnerable. And this is very vulnerable for men to refer to even discuss with their other buddies or with their family. And this could be something that is constantly running in the background of their psyche. And sure enough, the person that I was talking to admitted to me that they also use alcohol a lot, and not every day, but when they use it all the way that they don't have a stop button, which is a sign of trauma and a sign of wanting to just ease your pain, because for those few hours you can connect with others. Because what is worse than being violated as a child or as a teenager or even as an adult? What does that tell you? Is others are not to be trusted. So you build a thick wall around you and you don't allow people in. And my therapist and I were talking about this, and I simply just was asking, well, why do you think people don't get help? And she said, because a lot of people don't know how to ask for help, and they think that help is just for other things, but not for secrets. And when you're a child, especially, and these things happen to you, you are told by the perpetrators of these acts that maybe if you tell people certain things would happen to you or to your family members, and as a result, you completely either repress even those actions or try to forget, or you're consumed by fear that if I ever tell anyone, then something bad will happen to me or to my family or to my friends or all of them. So there's so many talks out there about this, and yet there isn't enough, because as important as it is to protect ourselves and our children, it is also important to acknowledge that we live in a society where there's a lot of trauma, and unfortunately, what happens is if trauma goes unchecked, then it turns into generational trauma. For example, if you grow up in a household where, let's say, your father is angry and full of rage, and you're the object of his anger, then you're going to grow up and without knowing, if you didn't get help and if you didn't heal those traumas, you will probably do the same thing to your kids. Maybe not to the same extent, but to some level. And that could go on and on and on unless somebody somewhere down that path put a stop to it. So this is another thing that happens. It also is very common when there is teacher-student or employer-employee or even older family members and kids. And there's an element of power, there's an element of familiarity, there's an element of fear. And when we're young, especially, and these things happen, we can figure them out. We look at it as either something that we've done wrong to be deserving this, or worse, if we look at it as something that is so bad that if we discuss, then we'll be disowned or we'll be punished, then we will never talk about it. And in the past couple of years, there's been so many Metoo movements and alike movements that brought certain things to the front. People get so uncomfortable talking about these things, and in a way, a lot of times they lash out at people who are the victims and finally have the courage to step forward. And people make excuses for the people who are abusing their power, saying stuff like, well, why didn't they come up 5 years ago or 10 years ago? Or I'm sure they just want money, or I'm sure they just want fame, or I'm sure they just want attention. And although sometimes those are true, but most of the time, the reason why people don't step forward is because they're just so ashamed and they're so afraid, and it is so uncomfortable to be that raw and to be that sharing with the whole world. And there are places where you lose your job, or you lose your parents, or you lose your status, and you lose your dignity, because usually what works is, or how it works is, they ask you in details, and because of the nature of trauma, a lot of times people repress the memory, and that's a defense mechanism so people can get up and start living the next day and continue living. The problem with that is, over the course of many years, all kinds of mental illness starts showing up, and then aches and pains in your body, because that repressed emotion has been stored, and it will manifest itself in physical issues. and all these modalities out there with like the therapy and plant medicine and breath work and all these retreats are about just going deep inside and finding those issues, reconnecting with them, bringing them to surface, express them, share them, and release them. Or else they will forever haunt us and they will forever torture us and they will forever bring us pain. And when we are in pain, unfortunately, we will bring pain for people around us. And usually people we love the most, because hurt people hurt people. And that's just a fact. Not intentionally in many cases, in most cases, but when you are not at your 100%, when you have something in the background that's just draining your energy, when you don't know how you feel because there's so many feelings that have been like pressed into a corner of your heart and your soul, and you haven't been able to decipher it, you haven't had the help or the knowledge or the expertise to go through them, then how are you going to help yourself? It takes a wise and very good therapist to take you there without re-traumatizing you again. There has to be safety put in place. There has to be just they have to put in enough structure of trust and of integration of what they're telling you in your uh, daily lives after the reveal. And there's no room for shame, there's no room for guilt. It just has to be discussed. And I encourage anyone who either has been the victim of abuse or has been in contact with people who were victimized to kindly but surely guide them through the right channels, to never tell them to silence their disinformation, to never make them feel like they had any fault in doing so, or for the actions that have been perpetrated, so they can go and start their journey to healing their souls and to deal with the pain, so this doesn't keep go on and on and on for many generations to come. And also, all we can do is by bringing more awareness and by not making this a taboo. Because why is it a taboo? It shouldn't be a taboo. How come we show in our videos and in our video games, people just kill each other all the time? There's like slicing and shooting and all these violent acts, and that's not a taboo. But something that has happened to someone who's completely out of their control, when they were powerless, that becomes a taboo because it makes the audience cringe. And this has nothing to do with the audience. The audience has to learn that we live in a world where things happen and not all of them are positive. And especially the negative ones, we have to be strong. We have to be compassionate. We have to show sympathy and empathy. And we have to allow these people who were victimized to feel strong enough to step forward and to share their experience, so we can go on and correct the problems in our society. By sweeping it under the rug, nothing will happen. And by protecting the ones in power, nothing will ever change. It will get worse. And we all have loved ones, and we don't wish that upon anyone, or not even ourselves. So don't shame people. Open your arms, even when you don't know what to say. Just open your arms and let them cry in your arms. Make them feel safe, because the only thing that matters is safety. Because if people feel safe, if people feel comfortable, the words will flow and the pain will spew out of them. And with the right amount of help and nurturing, they will heal. It takes a while. It's not something you can do overnight or over a week. But when they're healed, then they will be better sons and fathers and mothers and daughters and neighbors and students and citizens of this world. So I really would like to emphasize that this is a very common problem. And it doesn't matter where you live or how poor or rich you are, or how educated or uneducated you are. It doesn't know those limits, and we should always be aware that somewhere this is happening and has happened to people, and it is happening to people. And by just creating that level of intimacy with people, hopefully people will feel safe and they will discuss those, and then we can push them towards therapy or any other ways that will help them heal. Thank you very much for watching this episode, and I will talk to you soon.